40 West Ford Road, wine and malt. We have a motion to approve that.
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we also have executive session minutes to approve of May 21st, 2018 and June 4th, 2018, number 1 and number 2.
Move to approve the executive session minutes as noted.
I abstain, I wasn't there.
Second.
Just a second, and then I have a question before. Do we need to assert or state not to be released?
Yes.
Not to be released. All those in favor? Aye. And now we're ready for the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Works Department has a lot of road projects going on. So they finished on Lowell Road except for pavement markings and some loam and seed. But on Old Road to 9 Acre Corner between Main Street and Route 2, there's work happening there, as well as Laurel Street and Sudbury Road. They're raising the castings in anticipation of paving later this week. So there is a lot of paving work happening. The light plant activated its Google Groups list notifying people that today is a potential peak day opportunity to shave the peak. By lowering the peak demand that we have on hot days, we can lower our annual cost over the course of the year. This might be the peak for this summer, or perhaps it will be hotter later in the summer. The special election results you've heard about, but there was a 13.56% turnout. That was better than the 3% turnout for the March election. And of course, the decision was to, by about a 2-to-1 margin, to support the bylaw prohibiting recreational marijuana. We're going to summer offices. I mentioned it last time as well. Summer office hours, excuse me, so that most town departments will close at noon on Fridays, beginning June 29th, running through the Friday before Labor Day. The second annual Middlesex Jazz Fest was a great success. We haven't met since then, but I thought it was great. There were good bands, great music, good food, beer served.
Good turnout.
And a good turnout, excellent turnout. And the sponsors hope that will continue in the future. The volunteer reception to recognize the volunteers who serve on town committees is scheduled for this Thursday, June 21st at 5 o'clock in the hearing room. The Concord Police Department joined with ATA Cycle to sponsor a bike rodeo for students on Saturday at the Sanborn School. It was successful, giving the kids some training on safe bicycle practices. GPI has been recommended as the planning consultant for the Giroux property park development. GPI is the consultant that's done the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, done the design work for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail in Concord, so they're very familiar with the site and had some creative ideas about how that land might be reused for a park. TVA Architects has been selected to develop a master plan for town facilities. They're just getting started now, inventorying the town facilities. They'll be doing a public outreach process in the fall, and they hope to submit a draft master plan for the town facilities in January. The parking decisions made by the board recently will be implemented in July. That would be removing the pay-by-phone signs on Main Street, removing the meters in front of the library on the Main Street side of the library, replacing those with 3-hour parking signs on both sides in that short area there. And then, of course, there'll be no meters installed in the Kais Road and Walden Street parking lots. See, the long-range plan, the Comprehensive Long-Range Committee expects to vote to finalize their plan on June 29th, meet with the Planning Board on July 16th, and then visit with the Select Board on July 30th to review the Comprehensive Long-Range Plan, and then it will be final. And the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail work has resumed on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Marcia has a meeting scheduled with the general contractor on Thursday to find out exactly what the schedule is. The primary work is the intersection at Main and Com Ave, where the rail trail crosses Main Street, and the hope is that work can happen this summer when traffic is at its lowest. And lastly, the Attorney General approved the bylaw changes adopted at town meeting, including the alcohol on public property with the Select Board approval bylaw and the recreational marijuana ban. So those have been approved by the Attorney General.
Chris, I know we've gotten a couple of letters and comments about the impact of the parking meter changes to the side streets, Abbott Lane, and do we have anything in the works there? Any thoughts about how we're handling the impact?
So There was a problem that when
Right.
folks couldn't park on Main Street, the parking was
they were-
happening.
we're
So the hope was
anticipating-
that if there's no restrictions on parking on Main Street, all-day parking, that.
It'll relieve that, right.
I've taken a look on Academy and haven't noticed a change, there's still cars parking there, but people do have other options.
Do we know when the construction in Concord Academy is going to be wrapping up?
I don't know, but I can find that out for you. I'll let you know. Hopefully by the end of the summer, I think their goal is to shoot for the end of the summer, but I have to check.
Could you remind us when the parking redo of Cottage Road and the Walden Street lot is gonna happen?
It'll be in July, so they're gonna be doing both the Walden Street lot and the Cottage Road lot, and my understanding is, they'll be doing them both at the same time, but about half of the lots, each lot will be available at any given time. Just to have them done by the end of the summer.
Thank you. We next move to Carrie LaFleur doing the approval of the bond and note sale. This is one of those good news.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Carrie LaFleur. I'm the town's finance director, and I'm here this evening to present to you the results of the recent bond and note sale. On June 6th, the town received competitive bids for bonds in the amount of $6,710,000. This is a 10-year issue and a 1-year $400,000 note issue. The town received 6 bids on the bonds, and the bids were ranked by the lowest true interest cost, and so we net out any premium that we have received to come up with what the true interest cost is. The winning bid was received by Janney Montgomery Scott LLC with a true interest cost of 2.165156%, including a premium of $858,407.15. In the packet, there is a bid tab. I won't go through that, but you can see that the 6 bids were very close with a spread of 0.084%. So as is allowed under our authorization, we can resize the bond issue to account for the premium, which we have done. We used $675,000 of the premium to resize the issue down to $6,035,000. And the additional amount of the premium is used to pay the issuance costs. And that is a little over $86,000 for issuance costs for both the bond and the note. So I'd like to calculate what the estimated savings is. Over the life of this bond issue, the estimated savings to the average household is $108. I know it's not a big deal, but it's something. And then in the packet, there is a list of all of the projects that will be financed from this particular bond issue. Then we took bids on the notes. We received 2 bids. The lowest bidder came in at 2% even, and that was Century Bank. And the notes will be used to fund the broadband project that is authorized under Article 48 of the 2013 annual town meeting. The town did retain its AAA bond rating through this process, and I'll just quickly read what the agency cites as positive credit factors. The high residential wealth and income, healthy reserves and liquidity bolstered by conservative management and historical support from taxpayers for debt exclusions and overrides to tax limit levies, a below average debt burden, and aggressive contributions toward the pension and OPEB liabilities. So as is custom, as the treasurer, I accept the bid, or I award the bid contingent upon approval from the select board. This evening, I'm bringing those bids to you to be awarded and request that you authorize all of the documents related to this bond and note issue.
I see the note says that the clerk must read the entire vote. Sorry about that.
Yes.
I have a question before. I'm happy to do that, and congratulations on a successful issue. That's terrific. Andrew, it indicates in this thing that I'm about to read the following votes passed unanimously. So I'm wondering if,
We ought to vote.
if we take the individual items that we have to vote on. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Karen?
No, I do, because it's a record of
So
what
I just
happened.
put will
what
vote,
happened.
or
I think that's fine,
Okay.
yeah.
I, the clerk of the select board of town of Concord, Massachusetts, the town, certify that at a meeting of the select board held June 18th, 2018, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which quorum is present, the following votes will be taken, and all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. One, there will be a vote that the sale of the $6,035,000 general law litigation municipal purpose loan of 2018 bond of the town dated June 21st, 2018, the bond to Janie Montgomery Scott LLC at the price of $6,794,474.66, and accrued interest is hereby approved and confirmed. Bonds to be payable on June 15th of the years and the principal amount and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. 2019, the amount of $825,000, interest rate of 3%. In the year 2020, an amount of $735,000 at 4%, and 21, $675,000 at 5%. In 22, $655,000 at 5%. 2023, $650,000 at 5%. 2024, $515,000 at 5%. 2025, $505,000 at 5%. 2026, $495,000 at 5%. 2027, $495,000 at 5%. 2028, $485,000 at 5%. We will further vote to approve the sale of a $400,000 2% general obligation bond State House note of the town dated June 22nd, 2018, and payable June 21st, 2019, the note to Century Bank at par. We will further vote in connection with the marketing and sale of the bond, the preparation and distribution of the notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 30th, 2018, and a final official statement dated June 6, 2018, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, being hereby ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. We will further vote that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with the SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bond for the benefits of the holders of the bond from time to time. We will further vote that we authorize and direct the treasurer to establish post-insurance federal tax compliance procedures in such form as the treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the bond and the note. We further vote that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, and other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, time, date, and agenda for the meeting, which agendas included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in the manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed and approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remained so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decisions in connection with the sale of the bond or the note were taken in executive session, all in accordance with general law, chapter 30A, paragraphs 18 through 25 is amended.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody against? It is unanimous.
I'll read it again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary.
We are now ready to move to the 7:05 public hearing, change of directors / manager from Scottish Sportsman Club, 250 Old Mill Road. Good evening.
Good evening. To open the public hearing.
I second
All
it.
in favor?
Aye.
Hi, my name is John McGarry. I'm president of Scottish Sportsman Club, and I'm seeking approval from the town for our change of directors, which we do annually. I've submitted the paperwork, and
I notice you have 15 directors.
yes. Yeah.
This happens with great regularity.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot to cycle through, right?
Yeah. Anybody have any questions that they would like to have answered?
Was thrilled to see the Sportsman Club for the first time at the Concord Battery Luncheon.
Yeah,
That was-
that was a good spot.
yes.
We have a motion then to close.
I move to close the public
Any
hearing.
public have any comments that they'd like to make?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to approve.
Sure, I move to approve, Jim will help me with the pronunciations, Goelli, Ken Hughes, Sean Keenan, Nick Nigro, and Fred McDonald as new directors of the Scottish Sportsman's Club located at 250 Old Mill Road. The manager of record shall be Brian Heveron, as approved in 2017, all contingent upon ABCC approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We now, next agenda item is the public hearing, the dog hearing, 15 Chase Road for violations of existing dog order. Good comment,
Move to open public hearing.
we got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I just remind you, we all received an email late in the day today indicating that the dog owner was not planning to attend tonight's hearing. And that work had started on the fence ordered, constructed by the board, and he hoped that work would be completed in a day or two.
And I would just sort of for the record indicate that our last meeting 2 weeks ago, there was an agreement which was notified in a letter to the dog owner that the fence was to have been installed by Thursday, so it could be inspected on Friday. So he's not in compliance, but there is some progress.
There is today, sir. So I believe he's erected the fence facing Chase Road, the 6-foot stockade fence. I don't know if Andrew
There were some
provided you with that.
photographs that were.
Yeah, there's also, I did a draft of a map. He wanted to construct in the backyard as opposed to doing the entire backyard, was to segment the yard by putting the fence from the corner of the house. I don't know if you could see it on the map.
Is
Yeah.
I haven't seen
it
that.
on the table?
On the very back, I believe.
Okay.
I think on the back you'd see the layout of the lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So it says number 3, as opposed to doing the fence across the back of his property. I think what he wanted to do was put the stockade fence, save him some money and time. Segment the yard, so it would be surrounded that mechanism. The property abutting 44 Prairie Street would still have that 4-foot picket fence that he said he was gonna repair and then put bamboo blind, such as is on the that abuts the property of part of the property of 52 Prairie Street.
Yes, in your opinion, do you think that would be adequate for the protection of the neighbors, and the kind of the initial purpose was to ensure that the dog presence wasn't going to be something that would scare and then put in peril any of the neighbors? There's been an ongoing problem for a number of years, and I think we wanted to ensure that the neighbors sort of felt that this was being accomplished, that there wasn't going to be a problem going forward. And we had fairly kind of strict guidelines, and I guess I'm a little concerned that, first of all, he's not met any of them, and now he's seeking to alter them. But I think, personally, my feeling is that if it achieves the goal, I'm not going to get too caught up in the method for achieving the goal, but I'm a little concerned that he seems to still not quite appreciate the importance of what we've asked him and requested that he do.
I think his absence might speak for itself in
Yeah.
that regard. But I believe the only problem now, if he did erect a fence like he says he was going to, I think the problem might be just the property as it abuts 44 Prairie, because that fence is only about 4 feet high. There's openings in the fence, he says he's gonna repair, and I don't know if the blind would be sufficient enough to provide that family with,
And are they one of the chief points of concern?
it's just that property on 44
Right.
now. I think he would achieve the goal if he, on 3 sides, but I would still have a concern about the property abutting 44. And it still would need to be inspected by somebody, because he's,
Yeah.
I drove by this afternoon, just before I came here, and there's only a small portion of it completed so far, so there's still have to be an inspection to make sure that.
And the inspection was supposed to have been done by the dog officer, and I don't think she's not appeared, nor have we had any.
No, but when I went by there at 11 o'clock today, and he hadn't completed the first segment of it, so she was gonna inspect it around noon time, but there was really nothing to inspect at that point in time. I did drive by tonight, and it seems to have completed that section facing Chase Road, but I didn't get close enough to see if it's adequate enough. And he does have materials in his backyard.
One of the photographs makes that clear, but materials don't necessarily a fence make.
So, wouldn't we expect that if there's a change in the plan, that change be brought to the board for approval? I mean,
We've expected a lot. And we've got-
Over how many years?
I don't think that there's a change in the plan. I mean, he's proposing a change in the plan, but, and that's up to us, that's not up to him.
And he hasn't written to us to ask or even tell us about the change in plan.
Well, that's my point.
I think he was instructed to contact Mr. Morrow if there was changes or questions or whatever it might have been.
And is this what qualifies his, request for changes?
Well, that was just, I just put that together after I looked at the property today, so that was just something I put together. He said this is what he intended to do. I don't believe he's asked anybody permission to do it.
We have the authority to impound the dog until the fence is completed. My concern is that the law puts then the expense of the impoundment on the dog owner. And my understanding is one of the problems in this situation had been the financial one to begin with. So that I somewhat hesitate, but it is more than annoying, his attitude and approach to this issue.
We know the order of magnitude of what impoundment costs are. I mean, do they go to a kennel?
I believe that to cost the kennel
Yeah.
per day, so it'd be a per diem cost.
And if it's required, the euthanizing the animal, then there's a cost that as well. And that is tacked on, as I understand, he's a renter, so it wouldn't be able to be tacked on to his real estate tax, but it would be taxed on to his excise tax be required. So that's a kind of a mechanism of the collection.
It's unfortunate that he's chosen not to be here tonight to tell us what his plans are and why they were changed from the order that he has.
It wouldn't be credible to me if he was here. He's told us all kinds of stuff and it never happened, so.
Has there been any excursions of the dog off the property since we engaged?
There was none reported
That
to
we know
us.
of?
No, I was in the yard today and the dog did come out of the house, but it was on the runner and it did have the muzzle.
Well, it feels like we're, the point of concern is maybe as much a problem. I mean, we're in a position to focus on the dog when the conversation and the dispute is clearly becoming with the owner's compliance.
So I have to acknowledge that he's made progress. It wasn't exactly the plan that he had agreed to and that you had followed up with the letter. But there is progress and there are building materials in the yard. It looks like the intent is to put this out. I'm gonna guess he's not gonna get to it tonight with the storm outside.
Big dog? What kind of dog is it?
This serves,
We're in a public hearing right now, so we'll.
I mean, I guess the way I approach it is, our job is to be assured that the dog is no longer posing to be a nuisance and a problem. I know some of the neighbors would like us to correct the behavior of the dog owner, but that's not sort of before us,
Not in our jurisdiction.
at least directly, and it's certainly something that I think we would have little ability to do much about. I hesitate to allow him as almost the tail wagging the dog, as it were. Sorry about that. To allow him to further time to continue, but if we are able to accomplish the goal, and there hasn't been any issue, I guess my inclination is to keep the pressure on. I don't think we would allow an adjustment based upon, his just indicating that that's what he'd like to do. And I think he's got to provide a complete section of how he's gonna do the fencing. And we need to have a date certain, not just I'll get to it when I can get to it.
I think what we ought to do, I don't have the exact language, we ought to set a date certain.
We did.
Relatively, but this time, the condition will be the dog will be impounded if it is not completed. And the dog will remain compounded until the job is completed. And we could even set a date sometime in the future that if it's not completed by some date, then the dog will be usable. But I certainly think we ought to set a date and impound the dog until it's completed, the satisfaction of the dog officer or group to tell is going to do it.
Concur with the board on that.
I'm sorry?
We would concur with the board to set a date for either or both.
Might I suggest June 30th would be a few days before your July 2nd meeting, that it must be complete, or at your meeting, the dog would be impounded?
My preference would have it be
Monday.
More
Sooner
sooner than that. There's
Give
no-
it another weekend.
We've got, you know, weekend coming up here, I think it's next Monday.
25th?
If it's not, does that seem like a reasonable
Yeah, it's a week.
approach?
And ask the animal control officer to inspect it and make sure it's
Right.
Or
sufficient to
the
retain.
lobster, I don't know.
Whichever.
Just
We'll work with the
somebody-
dog control, the animal control officer, to make sure that it's sufficient.
So with the new design, there's a new piece of fence that is being constructed, so it requires a different installation when you're attaching it to the house. So somebody who knows fencing ought to be able to look at that.
And I did see there was one indication that there was going to be some section of it be bamboo.
It's along this,
Bamboo screening, is that what you-
along where the picket,
On the side at 52 Prairie, the house adjacent to it, on the, as you're facing it to the right, they have both stockade fencing, chain link fencing, and a small portion of it, a bamboo screening. Seems to be able to block the dog's vision from
Yeah.
the,
I don't have any problem with that adjustment, that seemed to be reasonable, but I don't think. that
and this
he
is
gets-
just something you mentioned today, so I mean.
Yeah. I don't think he gets to dictate otherwise. One second. We will, Andrew, I think we'll need another, we'll draft a letter tomorrow, I assume, to make this clear to him, so.
well, we are in a public hearing, so.
Yeah, no, we'll have,
Yes, we'll have whatever discussion there is, and then
Yes.
we'll propose.
any other questions or, any of the public like to comment? Yes, come forward, please.
The microphone?
Tanya Gala, 62 Prescott Road. As someone concerned about animal welfare, and I've been at, I think, all the 3 hearings now. I would just, first of all, thank you for your compassionate approach to the situation, and urge the.
It's awfully hard to hear.
Okay, thank you for the
So much.
compassionate approach to the situation, and I would like to urge you to continue in that compassion and not make the dog pay for the owner's difficulties, personal or whatever difficulties. It reminds of the situation at the border separating children from parents. I was wondering what happened to that proposal that one neighbor gave last time about helping put up the fence altogether. That was kind of a hopeful proposal. And also that I believe that everything has been, it sounds like, I don't know the people, but it sounds like things have been taken care of to make sure the dog does not attack anyone or does not actively disturb anyone, so that the fence was just like an added provision to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what was the situation with the neighbors? Do you know?
That's
No.
outside of our purview,
Okay.
so.
Thank you very much for your compassion. Thank you.
I'll only say what seems to be compassionate to the dog may not seem to be compassionate to the neighbors, so that's the balance of
I know.
passes. Anybody else like to make a comment? Yes, please, George?
Here?
Yeah.
Peter Scavangelli, 129 Everett Street. I just had a thought that, is it possible that a smaller area could be constructed so the dog can be outdoors and the neighbors are safe while he does the confinement for the larger area as a possible interim solution? I mean, he's been given every opportunity.
Thank you. The proposal that he submitted shows that he would be making a smaller containment area.
He's taken it on himself to decrease the size of the yard for jog.
Anybody else?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, letter to him that he is to completed everything by
Monday to Wednesday.
Monday the 25th?
No, well,
Or
it's
just-
to be inspected on a Tuesday. So that would give him this
Yeah.
week and the weekend. And he has the materials on site.
Well, he has the material, the stockade fence for 1, 2,
One
and
section.
3. I'm not sure if he had for all of the areas, because his area that he sent to us, that little notice, indicated that he expected to complete the remainder of it at some point later in the summer.
So let's look at the drawing in our notes. If he is going to install a new fence that is not shown in our drawing, that goes from the end of the house up to the fence, the dog will be in this area or this area? Because now he's going to separate his backyard in two. Do you know which way this?
I think it's this area.
So he wouldn't have to do sections 1 and 2 in the proposal
No.
that he has.
No, one is this line.
Our drawings are together. This is 1.
On my sheet,
But this is the one that we were working with, that he was ordered to do 1, 2, and 3 immediately. But these are, that was section 1. That's section 2. So he's changed the numbering.
Actually, he didn't
It
change,
doesn't-
I put that number, and said he didn't
Okay.
change that, he didn't provide us with anything, so I just
This
drafted
is
what,
your,
Okay.
that's just a draft of what he proposed today to us, so I just wanted to have
Okay,
something
it's
that
your
you could
verbal.
look at, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
your sense that he wants to put the dog, and the dog will be in this section of the backyard.
Yes.
Okay. So from the order that we had issued and your follow-up letter, in this scenario, he wouldn't need to do anything on sections 1 and 3, because now there'll be a new fence that goes from the house, the edge of the house, the right-hand side of the house, to the wall, the fence that's 5. And he only needs to replace 2 and 5.
I don't know what the numbers are, but on the pictures that we got, Chase Road number 2, as you can see to the right of the picture, that's the existing fence that runs along the boundary with house number 52. And the fence that's at issue is this picket fence that runs, that on the map I have is listed as number 2. I don't know what the
your Chase Road number 2.
And that's the one where he's planning to put in place some kind of bamboo structure after repairing that fence. So I think the motion that we would have is that by a date certain, he would have completed the construction on the fence as he had outlined in his note to Andrew, or to the satisfaction of the police department. I don't want to get into, well, it's number 6 or
Yeah.
but he either completes it according to what he submitted to us, or a plan that, from the police perspective, is sufficient to restrain the dog. That's done by Monday, the 25th. An inspection happened no later than Tuesday, the 26th. And if it is not completed to the satisfaction of the police department, the dog will be impounded until the fence is completed to your satisfaction.
At the owner's expense, right?
Yeah.
That,
Is that okay with that?
Sounds fine with
And
me.
has he seen your drawing so he knows what was presented to us as the alternative plan?
I was expecting him to be here today, and I just wanted to draft that so you'd have a guide
Yes.
to go by, or something visual that you
Well,
could
we
do.
have a note that he provided to us with what he said he was going to do, so that's something, and if the police look at it and they think that whatever he's doing is satisfactory,
we're not gonna hold anybody to something that you very nicely offered us as a guideline. This didn't come from the.
so the motion of practice. I move that the owner be instructed to complete the fencing in compliance with the letter he submitted to Mr. Mara, or an amended version that the police department considers sufficient to restrain the dog no later than June 25th, so they can be inspected on the 26th. If it is not satisfactorily inspected, the dog will be impounded until the work is completed at the owner's expense.
I would just add one thing, which is to restrain the dog and protect the neighbors, as as we discussed. Is there a way to capture that?
I think the remainder of what our original order, it remains in effect.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Now, do we want to address the issue, though, of a date certain if it's not done in the euthanization? So he understands fully the implication.
We have a date, if it
Yeah.
doesn't done, I think
We
the
can-
only remedy
Yeah,
then is
that's
to
fine.
have the dog euthanized, and we can take it out if it's not compliant. And the dog will be compounded, so it won't be a threat to the neighbors.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are now ready to discuss the response to Verizon's request for locating the wireless facility in Concord Center to Emerson Field. We have received a number of correspondence regarding this. Michelle, I'll not get the name pronounced correctly, but Scavangelli, 129 Everett Street, Cheryl Dreyer, 349 Main Street, Carla Monahan at 67 Silver Hill Road, Jerry Wedge of Emerson Umbrella, and Jack McBride, and I should have, but I don't have the address.
57
tonight,
Everett Street.
so thank you. So we.
I also wrote in,
Yes.
excuse me, okay, just not listed, but
We did have a discussion at the last meeting, and I must say I found the communications to be very helpful. We also, we have from Marcia at the town manager's office, the information regarding the application back in 2006, where there's, I think, a general hope that Kai's Road could be an alternative siting, and that addressed some of the problems that were raised at the time back in 2006 and 7, having to do with the historical commission's disapproval, and also having to do with the State Historic Commission's disapproval. I get the sense that there is a desire to study this a bit more, to see whether information may have changed or the policy may have changed from the Historic Commission, and whether Kai's Road could be an alternative. I also would note, in thinking about this, that there hasn't been any testimony that I've heard urging the requirement of expanding broadband. I mean, Verizon has come and they presented us with a variety. I think there were 4 different locations that they had looked into that church steeples that were not going to be available to them. But I think there has not been testimony from the business community regarding the urgency of having an antenna installed. So I think one of the questions that we need to discuss is whether broader, further study needs to be done on this to see whether A, there's an immediate need, and also that the technological changes that are coming, whether what is being proposed is going to be adequate in a number of years, or whether there's going to be something that is able to be scientifically shown to be safer that'll be available in a year or two. And there's no point in our going forward with something which is going to be obsolete in a few years. But I toss it out for my fellow board members for their input.
Just before we start, just a correction, I think it's the Historic District Commission, not the Historic Commission.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And correct me, especially Chris, if I'm wrong, my understanding was that the Historic District Commission's hands were somewhat tied to state and federal positions. Is that?
Well, they found that they took their position independently, but and the Historic Commission was involved. They actually sought the opinion. The Historical Commission sought the opinion of the state Mass Historical.
What about the
It was the HDC that issued denied the application.
So what about is there a federal and a?
So yeah, the state expressed strong objection to the Kais Road site, 141 Kais Road, because at 85 feet, the tower would be visible from the Old North Bridge, from the Barrett farmhouse on Barrett's Mill Road, and several other Sleepy Hollow, several other national sites on the National Historic Register.
Okay, so it would be if this conversation continued, we want to. Somebody would want to contact the state as well to see if Kais Road was going to be considered in some way, shape, or form. Okay.
In some ways, it makes some sense, as we're just getting underway with facilities management planning, that if there are significant changes in the future to Kais Road, that could incorporate a study where the pole would not be as noticeable as it is now, which is where, as it was proposed, it was how many feet?
85.
And would it be I'm asking this in general ignorance, I don't know that it would be the same pole, the same size, the same anything even today. I mean, that was, when was it? 2000.
They are proposing the same size over at the.
Again, I'm saying, I have that, we don't have a proposal for Kais Road.
I have a specific question before we get into this a little bit. When Verizon was here last time we met, they talked about all the places they looked at. They referenced the Unitarian Church here. And they said they couldn't do it there because the bell was obviously visible.
The belfry was not covered.
But I went and looked at all of these sites just visually again. There's an area above the bell over here. And I just wonder did they look at, do you know if they looked at that area or just looked at the bell and said, well, can't go down here, which I would agree with, but could we ask them? I mean, kind of just aside, but there's a pretty good sized area above the bell. I don't know what is in it. But
I think that was one of the problems. I don't know that the church was interested in hosting the site as well. That was
there was one church that said, no thanks.
I don't know if the first parish did that.
I thought there was Elm Street.
Might have been.
The Trinitarian Congregational Church had no interest in leasing to additional wireless carrier.
Are they already carrying somebody?
That's the Trinitarian church.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a question, because obviously you can't put where the bell is, I guess, but there is, I don't even know how tall it is, but there is an area above the bell.
Their concern was that Verizon expressed last time they were here that where, as opposed to some of the other, like the Holy Family Church, you can't see the installation. It would be very visible and therefore probably objectionable to the HTC
Well,
in the belfry.
The
at
bell,
First Parish.
well, again, there's an area above the bell that is enclosed.
Mhm. Okay, I'll ask. I don't know if they would look at that.
I don't, no idea.
But to a certain extent, we're doing exactly perhaps the discovery that a further conversation or study.
Well, it's just a question that if I'd been on my toes, I would have asked last time they were here. So what was the plan?
Well, I think we could make a few public comments to see what,
Well,
We've heard
that's,
about it.
that's fine, that's public comment. What we have heard from the public rather
Yeah.
extensively on this, unless it's really new information.
Well, I just want to comment.
please identify yourself.
Yes, Jonathan Archer, 18 Oxbow Road, between Farrell Farm, 117 and Route 2. I think, first of all, there is definitely a need. I have a caregiver who uses Verizon Wireless. I use AT&T Wireless. Doesn't matter. There's a real problem. I have a 92-year-old senior parent in the house. I'm not the only one in town. This has been going on for years. I have a communications background, by the way. I'm a retired merchant marine officer, as an REO and so on, so I know something about RF exposure. I know that, I think people have testified in front of you from Verizon, maybe AT&T over the years. I myself am not a proponent of putting an antenna in a church belfry. I have thought, now maybe it is a Walden Woods objection, but what's wrong with the old town dump site, for one? Be plenty of room for a mesh fence around the base, which is pretty much what one needs typically for a larger antenna installation, which would be most efficient. It's a public safety problem. There have been officers in town who I've spoken with who live in town, and they've, exercised the same statement that I have to various people. It's a real issue. It's become a real public safety issue. In case people aren't aware, for
Just to
those,
clarify, you're saying it's a public safety issue because we don't have coverage? Or are you saying it's a public safety?
it's a public safety issue. Well, yes. In fact, when I was in Staples the other day, I was speaking to a Carlisle fireman, and I understand the town of Carlisle is doing
I just
something
wanted to clarify what you meant by public safety, that's all.
across the board.
Right.
No, but public safety, because there's inadequate broadband, is what you're saying, rather than.
Right.
Right, that's,
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah. It's not that there's a bandwidth issue per se, it's a problem of communication, period. And we are short a tower, and Concord is not by itself. There's Lincoln, there's Sudbury, there's Weston. It's the not in my backyard issue. I think that, we should try and really push on this to try and come to some conclusion in the very near future.
no,
Because
thank you, because as I say, one of my concerns is we've heard a great deal from the public who would be impacted by the concern of the radiation from these towers. And there is a zoning restriction regarding that. And so I think we want to pay attention. And I had not heard, I knew that there's a feeling that there's inadequate and that there's a problem with it, but I have not heard much testimony as to that. I don't think we've had any business groups coming before us who have said that it's impacting their ability to expand. Haven't had people who work out of their homes who are saying that at certain times they're unable to perform their work because it's inadequate. And so based upon that, my question in my mind was how quickly do we need to make a decision on it, and how much further information should we get? I know that at the State House, there's some scientific investigation that's being looked into. And, from my perspective, safety is very important. So I think
Oh,
what
it's-
you've expressed
Yeah.
is very helpful to me. I appreciate it.
The higher the frequency, just that people are not aware, FM stations that people listen to, 88 to 108 megahertz, we're talking about UHF, ultra, and SHF, super high frequency. Microwave, people don't think about it, but when they take a cell phone, they put it to their ear, they're actually exposing themselves more readily to RF exposure than if they were using a Bluetooth device or if it were on speaker. A tower, generally speaking, if there's less access in meters to a tower, so many feet, depending also on the frequencies that whatever Verizon's going to use, whatever AT&T's going to use, and they're all within a certain range. I own a house with my wife down in Staten Island, New York.
But I think
And I
that
just was going to say,
you went a little far afield here. I think
no, this is to make a point. There's an actual area called the Greenbelt. And right on the edge of the Greenbelt, you can drive through the Greenbelt in Staten Island Borough. And there's a fence, and this is on essentially a 5-acre zone, off the road. The RF exposure is actually minimalized because of that. You could, in theory, drive up, but then there's a locked gate, so this is what one wants, typically. You want a locked enclosure, so nobody can get to the base of the tower. Safety, keeping kids, will be kids away. The other thoughts very quickly, and I'll beg off to my chair, and maybe someone else would like to jump in. And I know it's state property, Northeast Correctional Facility. They have the tracking, panels there, there's the farm, that's just another, there's no historical significance there per se, but of course that would be a state town interface, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear that there is going to be a procedure that would include safety as an RF exposure to be, the primary concern, but we need to, I think, really move on to try and find at least, if not a temporary, a semi-permanent, and there are different ways of putting towers, antenna towers do not have to be permanent installations. So, yeah, that's a whole other part of this. And Verizon can address that for you, AT&T as well.
Is something different? Come forward, please.
If I can get forward. Excuse me. I'm Patrick Everett, 15 Stowe Street. I did raise a question at the last meeting about the public safety related to the radiation and its effect on people. As I pointed out, I think that the FCC guidelines we're now going by were established in '96. It's now 2018, and there was a international conference in 2012, which made public the fact that the FCC regulations were based upon the heating effect on the human body, and that allows much more energy level than what people have been finding actually does damage. And the Bio Initiative.
I think you sent us an email on this with a reference to a website, so.
I left reports, but I haven't heard it mentioned. But there is a strong possibility that when people realize what that report is really saying, that the FCC regulations might be well reduced, not only 1 or 2 or 5, but more than 10,000-fold or even more, because the Bio Initiative number at which people start getting into trouble, according to their results, is about 5 microwatts per square meter. But the FCC regulations allow more than 10,000 times that. We may get into a situation a few years from now when all these cell towers being put up, and oh yeah, they met the FCC regulations, but they're dangerous. Now, I don't think the ones that have been put up yet are dangerous according to my measurements, but there's nothing stopping somebody putting a very dangerous one up that is within the FCC regulations. That was why I suggested we ought to do a little bit more discussion before we go further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we, I just want to mention that the state legislature has approved a bill, and they have a group that are studying the health effects of RF. I don't think that we on this board will ever be determinants of the risk associated with exposure to RF. And I think the law doesn't allow us to consider the health risks is that right, in citing a facility in Concord. So I know there's a lot of emotion. I know there are people who are very concerned about the risks that they personally face, but it's outside our purview to consider that. And I think we'd be best to wait for the results from the state initiative to look at whether, what the health risks are associated with exposure to RF.
Do you know what the time on the timing on that?
Started last
Right.
year.
Mhm.
I don't know, but we could probably ask our,
I think it was
Right.
resubmitted this year.
okay.
Resubmitted. I think there's been at least one hearing, but that's all I know.
You guys know legislator.
Tom, did you?
Tom Tarpey, 169 Heathsbridge Road, a member of the Finance Committee, but speaking for myself, I've prepared a very brief 10-part presentation. I just wanted to say that...
Being on the finance committee will do that. No need to apologize.
The companies, the various companies have been dealing with this sort of problem for quite a long time, and the technology is advancing fairly rapidly. AT&T has for a number of years offered a device called a microcell, which plugs into the Ethernet connection at any home or a business, and will let up to 6 devices operate on it. AT&T and I think all of the other carriers are now offering a system called Cell over Wi-Fi, which is available to any phone that comes within a Wi-Fi network's area. And although I don't know very much about it, I know that the companies are now developing mini cells, which are designed to go on the top of utility poles and are designed to create the kind of coverage that we want to see without a large, high-powered, high-elevation installation. So I think all of these things should be examined before you make a decision. And
New York City's adopted the mini pole.
Sorry, it'd be better if you
Bob,
not
is that
interrupt.
Bob?
This is a
Right.
public
Sure.
meeting, so I know if it just the quorum here.
And for Pete's sake, whatever we do, don't let them build that 150-foot flagpole in Emerson Park.
So on the topic of small cell technology, I heard a presentation at the LMA meeting couple of weeks ago. City of Boston has installed 1,000 small cells in the city.
Which probably begs the question, and we're stuck right now between a understood need and an understood concern. And clearly I would look at the crowd here tonight and say there are a lot of people who have goodwill and want to figure out a solution. But, some people have a issue in their own backyard, and that's fully understood. And some people have other concerns. We need to look at all of our options in the best interest of Concord as a whole. I know I've heard from some, again, the interest in having a input into researching this with a intent not to find any one person's favorite site, but to look at all the options.
I always hesitate to set up a new committee because they're always difficult to, but I guess the question is, how do we go about what you suggested?
Task force, never a committee.
So it's not our responsibility to locate possible sites for Verizon. I think their job is to go up, find what they need to meet their demand, and go through a permitting process. If we'd like to put it there, we go through a permitting process where, in case of the Kai's Road facility, got turned down. So it's not, I don't think it's our responsibility to look at every site in Concord and find an alternative site to a place that they propose. We can.
But it might be our, in our interest to look at all the technologies that are available.
Who would have the expertise to do that? I certainly don't.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's within our purview either. It's just the technology.
There's people who haven't spoken, I'm going to get you first.
Thank you.
My name is Amy McManus. I live on Laurel Street. Two quick points. One is I've heard the phrase kind of not in my backyard in the NIMBYism aspect. I live in the dead zone. I can't get cell phone reception in my house, but I do use calling over Wi-Fi, and it works, and it's great. People can also get landlines. Obviously, that is still a viable I just want to point out two things. One is I'm encouraged and heartened by the idea of taking a pause as desperately as I also want to be able to like have my calls seamlessly move through town as I move through town, and it doesn't happen. But the idea to take a look at where we are now, things have changed in the last decade. I think that's the wise course of action. The other thing I wanted to say about the NIMBYism comment is I wouldn't want, it's not just people's concerns about the health risk, which I understand is beyond what you're allowed to consider. It's not just that I don't want this cell tower in my backyard, it's that there's an existing zoning regulation that it's the town's voice on that. It's not an individual homeowner being persnickety, right? And I know that the 1,000-foot setback can be overridden, but that expresses the broad consensus of what the town wanted to have done in terms of siting. I don't think that's just an NIMBYism issue. I think that's a planning issue that deserves some weight.
Thank you, I agree with that.
Hands in the back.
Yes. Look at you, and then we'll go across.
Do I really need a microphone? Okay.
Televised.
For the sake of all of our viewers,
I could be louder.
but not as visual.
So my name's George Corrett. I'm at 148 Peter Spring Road in Concord. Three observations. One, let's say if we were going to do something at the Emerson Park, it should be spectacular and not something that's just, you know, a fake flagpole replacing that flagpole that were put up by the World War I veterans. And I could imagine, you know, a 20-foot by 20-foot by 150-foot smoked glass obelisk, but I won't go into the details. You know, maybe. Anyway, so because that would be there for 100 years after cell phone technologies. 5G is coming along, and that's going to be quite controversial in terms of radiation, because it's going to, you know, it's going to be in the terahertz range and all that kind of stuff. But so I think it would be worth having some kind of a study just to look at the kind of gamesmanship that's going along, you know, going around, especially given the change in technology that we're going to be having. So, and actually, again, that 150-foot obelisk is actually a serious proposal, but, you know, maybe somebody from Verizon can contact me. So that's all I really have to say. But the technology is really going to be changing. I mean, 5G is already rolling out in some cities in Delaware and things like that. So it's radically different. So
Thank you. Please do.
I just wanted, Alicia Voyage.
Identify.
Alicia Voyage on 33 Stowe Street. I just wanted to clarify a question that came up, and it's actually Senate Bill 1268, and it's still moving through the legislature. It has not yet been approved, and if it is approved, a commission will be formed to investigate particularly the non-industry funded research and make public protections if warranted and necessary. So I just wanted to clarify.
What's the timeline?
I don't know, actually. I wish I did. But the State Department of Public Health is drafting information sheets on cell tower safety, as well as other information sheets related to wireless safety radiation. And I don't know when those will be released either, but I could put in calls regularly to ask. So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's helpful.
I guess the sense that I'm picking up is that there's not a groundswell to seek to have the cell tower be placed at Emerson Field, and that perhaps the wiser choice would be to delay it for a period of time to see what other options and what type of medical information or scientific information comes forward, and what other alternatives there may be. That doesn't address the need to take some quick action, but I think the quick action, at least I'm not feeling a great comfort level that this is what we really want.
So I think we heard from Verizon at our last meeting, and we asked the question about what is their urgent need, and the answer was no. But you never, that from a utility standpoint, you don't want to get to the point of urgency and then try to find a solution. You want to plan ahead. So that urgency isn't there from our perspective, but they are worrying about the competitive nature of the industry.
And that's their job, so that's an appropriate
It's not
place
our
for
job.
that concern to be, but
Yep.
it's not ours to take it on for them.
Any other comments from Linda or Mike?
Oh, I think Emerson playground, I mean, it's just, that's not gonna happen. I think they're right, I think if we just simply say to Verizon, we don't wanna do this now, period.
I think it would be helpful if the board so voted, in the same way that the regional school committee voted no on locating a.
I could be prepared to do that, but my concern is that we can try to get connected to the state and learn a little bit more about this and find out what's going on, but, this is an important issue, so, and it's not gonna go away. And we're gonna have the same comments next year that we have this year probably. So my issue is, how do we get on top of this? And I'm perfectly fine because it's not urgent, and there are alternatives now to just say no thanks right now. But the second step is how do we get on top of this? So next time it comes at us, we go, no. And I don't want to, I think it's not a good idea to create a committee unless there's a real goal or task for the committee to do. And this seems like it's going to be an unfolding set of events that's going to continue to change.
And it does sound to me like there's a lot of interest and expertise among the people who potentially were going to be affected by this, so hopefully they will continue to be active in keeping up to date with what's going on.
Chris, is this something you had any occasion to talk to your fellow town managers or in the area?
Well, they are all struggling with it. There's complaints about service, at the same time complaints about the visual impacts and the health impacts, so it's a constant battle. We've been approached by companies that do want to install the small shoebox size things on every other light pole, and there was some concern that might be unacceptable in the historic district, but maybe we take another look at.
Do we know anything about the arc exposure from small cell
It's
technology?
it's comparatively, I mean, I don't know anything about the real health risks, but the amount is way low.
So what I understand is it has a 500-foot range for each one of those.
Yeah. But it's relatively low.
So it's meant to jump from one
Yeah,
light
it's
pole
like a repeater. So you would feel
from one light
seamless.
pole to the next light pole.
in Colton Peters.
I would be interested also to see whether perhaps it makes sense to contact the state, whether the Kai's Road is sort of forever, not a possibility. Things do change, and
For as long as the Old North Bridge is valued. Pardon?
That's all ours.
Our flag, taller than Lexington's, I understand.
Linda, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have any solution to this, but I do generally agree with where we're going in our discussion here. And I do think learning more from the state would be helpful at this point. But I was also interested in how it would dovetail with planning, because especially since we're talking about an upcoming facilities planning.
Is this something Mark Howell could jump into a little bit as he?
Here's full.
I'm just wondering if there's any, to your point, is there a place within the town's expertise where we could plan, put at least a literature overview and a scoping, which I know that exists in various pockets here in the room, but putting something together that's a little bit more formalized, not, as you suggested, not becoming an expert, because I simply I don't know all of the points of study that are out there, nor, as Alicia very nicely pointed out, we don't even know where it is in the state right now.
With Google search, you can pull up lots of studies.
Right.
Lots.
But to understand the studies is another matter. You want to make a motion to?
Yes, I would move that we vote to inform Verizon that we are at this time not interested in the location of a digital cell tower in town.
In Concord Center.
In Concord Center.
I would like to ask a question before you close out.
Come forward then, please.
Yep.
Quickly.
Since Jonathan Arch from 18 Oxford Road. Other than church, belfries, and Kai's Road, what other sites have been proposed that I may have missed out on?
I don't think we've heard other sites proposed.
School.
Well,
And this
school.
obviously I'm against all of these that I've heard tonight myself.
We've heard the school, we've heard Kai's Road, we've heard the flagpole, we've heard the Emerson umbrella.
Didn't they look
And then
at
all the other churches.
Concord Academy, the athletic field? I think that there was a area there that they looked at.
I don't know that they did. I think it was, a lot of this has just been discussed in meetings where Verizon's come here and sort of,
Right, Verizon's been the one who's
Yeah,
been
this isn't
exploring
our
it.
research, it's theirs.
a commercial gig, so
Yeah.
they're the ones exploring. That's what we've heard so far. Somebody mentioned the landfill, I don't recall,
I just mentioned it.
I don't recall.
but it was
Already
brought up
mentioned
before, and I think that there was
before,
a concern that, every one of these sites has met with some level of objection.
Mhm.
But again, they're Verizon sites, they're not,
Yeah.
we're talking about the ones that are on town property, that's why they're ours.
And other carriers have service in the center.
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
I don't remember who it is, but somebody's in the church here. And was it Trinitarian that has something?
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we know if Lincoln, Sudbury, Weston, other,
So it's Verizon that's at a
Right.
competitive disadvantage in the downtown area.
Right.
So I would move that we inform Verizon at the current time we're not interested in the location of additional cell tower in Concord Center.
On municipal property.
Municipal property.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we could just, over the course of the next few weeks, if we could each sort of think about where are we going?
It's just getting going.
I thought everybody just
It's
really
really
going
good
forward.
We got really cool stuff going on.
Wow.
They're going to help that guy build the fence.
Oh, no. But they're gonna owe you fence building. Good fences.
Thank you all for coming.
Good cell towers make better ones? I don't know. Okay.
So if we could, where I was going with this, I think each of us has some kind of an obligation over the next few weeks here to see if we can think of a way to get us, meaning the town, better informed about options and alternatives going forward. I don't exactly know how to do that, but
I will be glad to share the PowerPoint presentation of the small cell technology that Boston is working to install.
Well, maybe, could we, just for the sake of clarity, could we do something like, say, you're gonna look into small tower?
That's just some
decide
photo of my
what
looking
pieces
at.
are-
I'll take,
I'm not in there.
get on top of what the state is doing,
Oh, what-
so
okay.
we can find
And,
out.
and since I'm the Historic Districts Commission point, I will look into that. Tom, what is
I'll
your?
monitor all of you.
Very nice of you. I'm not sure that you have coverage. And Lynn, what is it that you'd like to?
I'm not sure at this
The
stage.
operative word being like,
I'll
yes.
have to think about that. I would have liked to have talked to the state, but he got it before me. Okay.
Knock yourself out.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So now these two are the cluster of lack of coverage.
I'd call
Well, I do hope that that there was a great interest among a number of the citizens who were here tonight, as we saw, and that they will continue. But I guess one aspect might be to try to encourage them.
Well, maybe you can be the point of receiving and weeding through, as you naturally do, the expertise and interest of the town. And Mike, you can just run all the numbers on this.
No, what I'll do is connect with Mass Municipal Association and talk to selectmen in the other towns to see if anybody's got any cool ideas.
So in this meeting that I attended, there were a number of selectmen from other communities. The chair is from the town of Washington, who said, it sounds great for Boston, but it's never gonna get cited out here by us.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we can.
Yeah.
May I just add a very fast? ARRL. Yep, sure. ARRL, American Radio Relay League, we're constantly battling the FCC, in particular the present administration for obvious reasons. But there are some people there, along with people at MIT, who do have some of this information. I'm actually.
Maybe you can send some of your information to Tom, who's now going to be the lucky recipient of it all.
This
That
is,
would be helpful.
yeah, okay. We'll have to,
As I say, I mean, that's what, I'm very impressed by the amount of knowledge and the amount of interest, and that's a good combination to have.
the problem, just to state this and then I'm stepping away, RF is RF, tissue heating is tissue heating. I mean, you can get into, if you go on the ARRL website and look up RF exposure, anybody can Google it and it'll tell you, as frequency increases, et cetera, whatever, so many meters away. Transmission, we're not talking about reception, transmission, so that's it. But it's all 2.4 gigahertz, the Wi-Fi, which is the penetrative frequency that one needs, so.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it, so we'll stay in touch.
Very good. So we move along to the public-private partnership update.
I don't have much of an update for you. Andrew did provide the background information that goes back to the 2016 report the committee submitted and the list of public-private partnership, the then current list. There was a commitment for the town to post the list of public-private partnerships and any activity online, and I intend to do that. I have not done that yet, but I would like to update this list that was presented to you. I'm not aware of a lot of additional projects. Middlesex School, for example, has contributed, agreed, what Middlesex School has done in the past is look at the town meeting warrant, see capital projects that the town values and is intending to fund, and they've offered to fund twice now the track at Emerson Field, as was done several years ago, and currently they're funding the communications equipment for the police and fire radios. So those are two things that should be added, and there are
Those are really gifts,
others.
though, rather than partnerships.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. In the case of the track restoration, we allowed them to use the track at Emerson Field when it wasn't being used, so they saw value in that. I think they're on the public safety radios, they see that they're interested in making sure that there's good service on the radio communications out on the north side of town. So yeah, perhaps, and there's some question about what's a partnership. The question was asked, is CCTV a public-private partnership? I think not. It's more of a contract that we have. It's a contracted service rather than a partnership. But and then the two are very, very active, which is the Emerson Umbrella is in the middle of a major renovation project, and the library is gearing up for major expansion or addition onto the library. So I would identify those in a report that would be posted online shortly.
I have a question about the definition, and I've read all the material. So when the town contributes funds towards public housing, for example, is that a partnership?
Oh, good question.
Public-private partnership?
Good question.
Or it's really a public-public partnership,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So CPA funds, for
But
example.
CPA funds get
So
involved?
like for the Junction Village.
Yeah. I was wondering if, that's the,
I think at the time we thought that those were not, because all we're doing, the CPC gives money.
Yeah.
They have requirements that have to be fulfilled in order for the money to be dispersed, and that's the extent of it. So it's not
So
like.
those are grants.
It's a grant, like it's not an
Grants,
ongoing relationship. I would even be concerned about Emerson Umbrella, I get it, but essentially that's leased property. And other than signing the lease, the library is a different matter. We've got a tight partnership with them. They own the buildings, we provide the operating fund. There's ongoing kind of partnership, but I don't think CPC.
but with the Emerson Umbrella, and again, I don't want to take us too far afield here, but as I recall, there were some lease obligations in terms of upgrading the building over time significantly. So,
But as the landlord, that's part of the lease. You know, you're supposed to do these things as part of the lease. It really doesn't talk about, it's not really partnership. We're not doing something together.
The difficulty, though, I had is
programmatically
that
or, yeah.
CPC this year, I think, granted $150,000 to the Masonic Lodge with the agreement, and I don't know if it was a written understanding or not, that the lodge would allow public access according to, and that never, from what I can understand, that never gets monitored. So I think some of the purpose and the thrust of what the public-private partnership was seeking to do. Now, there is a process that the CPC goes through before they grant those funds. So the public initiation or public participation is available, but the monitoring, I'm not sure.
I do think that that's changing, because I think there are now, my understanding is that there are now 6 months status reports that are required in terms of the conditions that were included in the agreement when the group accepts the funds. So that, I think, is going to be more closely monitored going forward.
And will be published, will be in there.
It'll be public, that's a public meeting, and, yeah.
I know we have some the past members of the committee. I don't know whether any of them would like to make a comment. We're sort of, I think, a little bit behind what I was hoping we would be in terms of having done this, but we're at least getting a good start on it, and I think we'll have some momentum and get it up on the website. But I know that that was one of the recommendations was that there be a separate committee, and I think one of the concerns was that it was easy to kind of, we've got an awful lot else that the select board does, and it was easy to kind of bypass this, but I think I want to make it clear that that is not going to happen. So, but if anybody would like to make a comment, yeah.
Dory Keough, 51 MacArthur Road. And it's interesting that you're raising the idea of a definition, because somebody just today said to me, well, is the Masonic Lodge a partnership? And, yeah, oh, thanks. And I think that we can get tied up in this. If every single, for example, when the Swedenborgian Church had the front steps done, the idea was that one of their meeting rooms would be available. That's not really a partnership. I think a partnership is where it's a two-way street. There's something being done with the town, with a private entity that benefits both. And there's often is money or goods or services involved, but it's not just a payment for something. That's my first comment about a definition. But the other thing is, I think that one of the things that we had hoped in our recommendation was that there would be the idea of publicizing what's going on. So there'd be an annual updating. I think that there was some concern in the town in the past couple of years that some of the partnerships were doing things that the partnership knew about, but the general public did not. And so I would hope that I think we're making progress in getting something online, but that doesn't tell something so much. It's what it was when it was published and when it was put online. But the idea, I think, of updating, and I know this is a kind of a nuisance, and the idea is who is going to do that? Andrew, I know, volunteered, but we turned that over down. But I do think there's a real issue, and that was one of the reasons why the idea of, I know the word committee is like a bad word at this point. They're just proliferating all over the way, and I don't want to be on that committee either. But I do think that there needs to be some annual monitoring, so we see what's going on with the garden club. Oh my gosh, they ripped it all out, and what happened? Or they're going to. And I think I'm doing this in a lighthearted way, but I do think it's important because it's an awful lot as we do more and more public-private partnerships, and the real meaning of a partnership, not a payment of goods for something. I think that it could just go wild, and I do think that at some point there has to be somebody running the store. That's what I would just hope that if there could be some consideration, and I don't know whether that comes from the select board or from Chris, or Chris's successor probably will be the person who will be dealing with that, right?
Well, we can get it started.
Yeah, I hope
I've
so,
been
because
delayed. Tom has been asking for months now.
I understand he's been sort of riding on that one, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Jean Goldsberry, 1832 Main Street. Well, I'm very happy to hear that the town will be going forward with publishing things. And I urge that to happen as quickly as reasonably possible. We're now almost 18 months out from when the report was originally submitted to this group. And I've heard from numerous citizens, whatever happened? There's still nothing. We haven't seen any information, and nothing has changed. So I think in terms of the select board's commitment to the issue and the town's agreement, desire to be transparent about it, that was something that came up in almost every one of our meetings. The need for transparency so that citizens could get the information. So again, I'm happy that it's going to happen, and I urge you to see that happens fairly quickly.
I would just say for the record that the policy was adopted by the select board on July 10th of 2017. So while the report was filed and there was a fair amount of discussion, there was a letter following the hearing that we had, which was February 6th, Then we get town meeting, a lot of other things, but the policy itself is less than a year, so.
Okay, well, maybe you can just slide in right under the
That's
ear.
what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Carol Aronson, Southern White Farm. Back to your question, one of the things we wrestled with for, I can't even tell you how many months, was a definition of a public-private partnership. And I don't recall if, when you did your memo, if you really had that definition in there. And what we kind of found was that that became the crux. Well, when you're sitting there, because we went through this whole thing of CPA funds and this and that, and so I guess I would urge you, if you're going to pick this up again, to at least go back and look at how we define the definition. You know, change it if you want, okay? I mean, it was confusing as can be, but it was really important for us to, every time we came around to one of these things, to come back and say, does this really fit our definition, all right? So that's all I have to
So
say.
you
Thank
drew the box that we didn't do in giving you the
We had to, because we
Right,
were
you had
going
to-
crazy,
right.
okay? Because we would argue about CPA fund.
No, we needed that.
So I'm just saying, our definition, you know, was pretty simple, but I would just urge you to, if you're gonna pick this up again, to try to start with that, and if you change it, great, okay? But
That's good advice.
you totally had to have a box, and every time we went back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think then we're probably ready to move on to public comments. If anybody who has comments who hasn't already made them. Otherwise, now we can go, oh yeah, come forward, please.
Sue Redford, 103 Revolutionary Road. I came with a question that got diverted in the discussion about the Chase Road dog. And it has to do with the town's lawsuit against the private property owners around Estabrook Woods. And I'm wondering several things at the same time. One is that how long might this continue? How much is it costing? Is there a plan for, if there is a solution with countersuits, what kind of budget is there for such a lawsuit, such a lengthy kind of issue? But then, talking about this dog, and I don't know this dog, and I don't have a dog in this fight. There was a lot of compassion stated for the dog, okay? I don't want to beat the dog or euthanize the dog if it's not necessary, but it seems to me that there's been a lot of effort put into letting this kind of work itself out in a even gentlemanly way with this gentleman who owns the dog. And then I find tonight that, and I didn't know this earlier, that he is not a homeowner, he is a tenant. And the people that are involved in the lawsuit with the town are homeowners, and many of them are in a very high tax bracket. And I'm wondering why there isn't compassion for them when many of them have offered their land as access to these trails, but they're not being treated very
I'm
carefully.
sorry, so just because
Go ahead,
I'm
yes.
trying to follow the threads, you're talking about the compassion shown to
The dog.
The dog in
A dangerous dog.
Right.
Yes.
No, well, actually, that's not correct.
That's
The
what
dog was not determined to be a dangerous dog. The dog was determined to be a nuisance dog.
I thought the
So-
dog had bitten people.
But it was
Right.
one time, and the dog officer put forward, and the select board made the finding that it was a nuisance dog, not a dangerous dog.
Okay.
So just for, it's sort of
Okay,
factual.
okay. Thank you.
And I think that I'm not sure if I see kind of the connection at all. The lawsuit issue is a very complicated, it's a land dispute.
Right.
It doesn't have something to do with anything other than access on a path that at one point was a county road that was then abandoned, and the question was, then does the town have the ownership of it or the right to determine access over it, or do the abutters? And it's a legal issue that is being attempted to be worked out. One never knows. It takes two to make an agreement. We're making efforts, and time will tell.
Okay, so you see it as a black and white issue. You don't see anything of the nuisance aspect of the dogs, the people who insist on unleashed dogs or whatever's going on in these other side issues around this.
I think it's very different.
I think that the leashing discussion has been under the purview of the NRC, and while it's a separate, it has nothing to, it is in the environment of, but it is not a part of the lawsuit.
Okay?
You know, just because it all.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
I understand it's
Yeah.
complicated. I can't even express myself.
Right, so it's.
You're doing a good job.
But the West Concord case, there was a legal definition of a nuisance dog.
Versus a dangerous dog.
Versus a dangerous dog. While some of the abutters may, in their mind, find some of the dogs that go by their property or on their property to be a nuisance, there's not a determination, nor has there been an effort to make a determination that they are
So
in
it's
fact
two different-
legally
Yeah.
exactly a nuisance dog.
Right.
So it's a.
And the town isn't involved in a discussion
Correct.
about
About
dogs
the
on Estabrook Road. That was an NRC determination over
You can see
conservation.
how it gets confusing.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not, I'm not,
can see
I
that.
don't see how it gets confused.
That's why we get paid the high.
I understand that.
So I hope we helped.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol Aronson, 7 Wright Farm. Estabrook Road has nothing to do with the NRC.
That's right.
Estabrook Road, yes, but the.
You just said Estabrook Road is
No,
under the
I was talking
NRC.
about the dogs on leash, the leashing of dogs, which is at Pungatasset, which was an NRC determination.
Right, but you just said Estabrook Road was NRC, so that's all I
I
wanted to.
apologize, I was thinking about the Estabrook Woods.
Okay, we've cleared that up, and we're moving along now to liaison reports. Linda, do you want to go first? I think we were, the last
How far
time.
back do we want to go?
The last time we bypassed, it, I think it was about 10 o'clock at the time.
Exactly, so, well, just in the last couple of weeks, I can say that, I've been to a CPC meeting, which was basically an organization meeting. They had their first.
That's why you know so much about it.
I was also on that committee for
Right.
a while. They also had an information meeting tonight for first-time applicants, and they'll repeat that information session in early September, in case someone missed it or didn't have a chance. Also been to the Affordable Housing Funding Committee, and again, they were preparing for the select board meeting. Obviously, they came and spoke to us. I think, by the way, they're interested if we have any comments to give them, because that night, obviously, we didn't have time because things are moving along so quickly. I've been to a CHDC meeting recently, and they did an update, among other things, they did an update on the cost estimate, I think, for the house on the Giroux property. They were talking about that, among other things. Been to a ZBA meeting, and just a couple items, one of which was the renewal of a bed and breakfast in town, again, so. And then I happened to go with Jane to the West Concord Advisory Committee, but I'll let you talk about that.
Which is an adjunct to the planning board, which is good, so we can all.
Mike, you want to go next?
Well, the three I'll mention is I attended the HATS meeting. We were spoken to by the superintendent of National Park about his plans. We also heard about plans that Bedford has for developing rather substantial commercial properties back behind Hartwell Avenue back that way. something we should find out a little bit more about, Chris, because it has the potential of diverting traffic onto Route 2A, so coming into town. I don't know how far it would, but it does have that potential. I attended the Concord Municipal Light Plant meeting, as usual, a full agenda, talking about rates and a number of strategic initiatives. And then today I attended the quarterly Hanscom Air Force Base update. It's always very interesting about partnerships that they're doing with various towns. And Colonel Hunt, who's base commander, announced that he will be leaving, retiring from the Air Force, and he'll be leaving, changing command, I think, in early August. So he's been a terrific base commander, very engaged in the town. So too bad to see him leave.
Alice, would you like to?
I was out of town. Although I did go to
Tell
the
us about your
Minutemen.
vacation.
I did go to the Minutemen Building Committee meeting today. We are still on budget, on time, and there's been even more progress since our site visit.
And Alice, our site visit.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Our site visit.
Yeah,
Report, please.
We also had a site visit of the school and construction, and a lot has been done since that was 2 weeks ago. Great, they were now finished with all the roofing, all the floors that we saw in raw condition have all been completed.
The interesting thing is they had already pre-purchased the Canadian steel, so they were all set to knock
Wow.
Thinking ahead.
The whole approach to building was very unusual, which they have been able to construct this project in increments without having 100% design complete. So it allowed them to advance the project, and the school will be ready on budget a year early.
And what a phenomenal site it is. And thank you for putting that together, Alice. It seems like it was a long time ago, and it really wasn't.
I think it was.
Well, I attended one of our bi-monthly magic meetings, which is the 13 towns that we are a member of, planning meeting. And I think everybody here should feel proud of the level of interest in our leadership with the sustainability principles in the master plan process. I think we're going to be asked for a lot of guidance to other towns. There's just every one of them indicated some curiosity about, and we're all trying to attempt, small bites of the same apple, but nobody had. In fact, I think to some it was news that there was an APA approach, and it's just one more way that I'm once again left in awe of our town's professionals, because it doesn't take a lot of meetings to realize how far ahead of or how thoughtful we are. So they looked at the APA sustainability planning, and we had a discussion over it and comparison to some of the other things that are being done. And then they're going to have a small building, accessory dwelling units, education and support discussion on July 17th, which will be led by the AARP of Massachusetts. And I will send out more information on where that's going to be, but I thought that was accessory building is something that I certainly hope people in our planning department are going to be involved in that. I went to a Historic Districts Commission meeting, which I can say was wonderful to see and be amongst, but really nothing of great note was, we discussed a lot of things that happen in committees are the things we take for granted because they never rise to the issue or point of concern because they are discussed early with landowners and property owners or just as a policy. And then I also went to the West Concord Advisory Committee meeting, which Linda referenced, and as has been the case more and more so, West Concord is a hotbed, and there were two main issues being discussed. One was the development of the property. I still don't know what its number is, but it's referenced as the Hayes property, it's referenced as 14 something something and something something. It's the big property.
1440, 1450.
Thank you.
Where
So-
the shoe store was? Hay shoes? No.
No, this is the big property on Main Street. That's bordered by Highland on one side and Main Street on the other. And the proposed developer of it was there giving a big presentation. And as of his discussion, there'll be 37 units proposed. There will be, it wasn't clear whether there's one or more triplex, a couple of duplexes and a number of single family. His goal is 2-car garages for every unit. It's a PRD. And from a construction, as described, again, this is just this stage of the planning. None of this, I assume, is set in stone. He wants to leave a budding front on Main Street fairly green and fairly treed, but everything else, all the other trees will be gone. And he will move the hill.
Move that hill?
That top is about the highest point in West Concord. He's gonna level it back and push the earth back so as to create a larger platform to build on. So, and his, using the wrong terms, he's just gonna move the earth back and burn it. He seemed to think that anybody who bought the property would do the same, and I'm not a developer, I wouldn't know. There was a lot of attendance, a lot of questions,
What is the price range, any sense did he give that?
no, there was some discussion of whether there'd be affordable units, and he bypassed that conversation. I'm not saying there won't be, but he didn't engage. I asked him a fairly innocuous question about bike racks, and he was very interested in that option. It's clearly early, and there's clearly a lot of interest. I won't categorize the interest, but this is a lively, it was standing room only at Harvey Wheeler. And then the second point of issue brought up was the impending sale of what's called the Neshoba Bakery building. And that seems to be alongside of, it's unclear as to whether they're directly connected or connected in potential with the gas station next door, which then gives you a very large, space with all sorts of potential to it. And there was a very large discussion over trying to come up with an effort to exercise Neshoba Bakery's right of first refusal and get in front of the sale, so as to retain some of I would have called village scale and character when I was on the West Concord Advisory Committee. They're trying to, because right now there are 32 artisans and business owners who work in that building alongside Neshoba Bakery. There's also, for those who are not familiar with this space in West Concord, the lot that's in front of to call it a parking lot might be a little overly kind. The space that you would park in to go into Neshoba Bakery, that I guess it used to be a car lot maybe at some point.
It was.
What?
It was.
It was a car lot. That has been sold and is being developed separately by the same company that did Brookside Square. And that's going to be a 6,000 square foot retail space. So that's going to be different, which is the space right across from what's now Mark's Fencing. So that's happening. So what we're talking about is sort of everything behind that. It may include or may not, I don't know how this is going to work, but that the gas station is also for sale. So that's received a lot.
That's a huge change.
It's an enormous change. I mean, West Concord is really facing a lot of change, and I think it's going to probably test a lot of the early planning that went into the master plan and the thought process that's gone into guiding development there. So, sorry.
I was just going to add very quickly about the
You
law.
gotta come to the microphone.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I believe, dating myself now, 65.
Again, just for the purpose, you have to
Yes.
identify.
I'm sorry, Jonathan Archer, again, 18 Oxbow Road. I believe that parking lot across the way was an extension of the old Chrysler Plymouth
Right.
dealership.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I think what's going on with West Concord is a real challenge, zoning wise. And I'm agreeing with you also, the whole sort of extension of the mill dam, everything back of the prison walls and so on, it's gonna be a challenge.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add that I missed, because I know that this was,
No, I think you've done a good job capturing, incredible amount of interest.
I think we're gonna hear about it a lot as a select board. I think their planning board's gonna hear a lot about it. I suspect that the Concord Journal sitting over there nodding his head is going to hear a lot about it. So.
Concord Business Breakfast, there was a discussion.
Exactly, and that was another thing I attended that you were at, and we, exactly. It's,
Connecting Baker Avenue and the main part of West Concord and the bridge.
with the bridge,
Yeah.
pedestrian bridge.
Yeah.
So you can see, a lot of this has the opportunity to be really wonderful.
Mhm.
So I don't think we should paint this all as terrible, but I think it's gonna take patience and real careful planning.
I attended the Commission on Disability. There was initially discussion regarding membership, as the newest appointee was notified the chair she's unable to make the necessary time commitment, so we're going to have to replace her. There was the issue, which I mentioned to Chris, of access to 55 Church Street. There's concern that it's not built out far enough, so if you're in a wheelchair, it's difficult to access it. And people were not comfortable, so I think the next meeting, which is scheduled for July 19th, is likely to be at a different location. And then there was planning for the Disability Awareness Month of October, and the thought is to promote that at the bookstore, the library, CCTV, and that sort of then led to a discussion of trying to get better coordination with the Council on Aging. The Dog Park Feasibility Study Committee, they reviewed input from their hearing and discussed the steps that they have going forward. They've been examining dog parks and other locations and the various standards. Their next meeting is going to be July 10th at 5:30. And then the PEG Access Advisory Committee met on the 14th. It was their first meeting, introduction of all the members and their backgrounds and interests. It's a very sophisticated and informed group. They reviewed the committee charge and the duties. They discussed the issues of open meeting, public records, and conflict of interest, responsibilities. They elected the officers. The chair is going to be Carlin Reed, and their clerk is Peggy Wargelen. And there was a discussion of their outreach and whether to do a survey. Their next date is going to be July 9th at 2 p.m. and then also August 15th at 9:30 a.m. Those were in general. They got off to a good start, I think, and it'll be an interesting committee. So I guess we now miscellaneous correspondence. I already mentioned there was quite a lot of correspondence regarding Verizon. I don't know if people, other correspondence or anything miscellaneous people would like to raise. Otherwise, I guess we can go on to the nominations.
Let's see, we have a few nominations, one nomination for appointments. I nominate Vincent Carlson of 34 Everett Street to the Affordable Housing Funding Committee.
We have a couple other ones that we'd like to add to.
Are the nominations?
Nominations.
There are others.
Yeah, just last minute ones that were left off. That we just got green cards for.
Nicole Palmer, 1771 Main Street, for the, yes, Concord Housing Development Corporation.
That's the nomination? Yes. Are there others, or just those two?
Krista Collins to Junction Village Open Space Task Force, which recommended for Marcia. You got the green card. You okay with that in that nomination too? This is the first one. Marcia also forwarded an email from Joan Ferguson expressing her interest and Liz Rust. So those are two members that we could add. So the three, Krista Collins, Joan Ferguson, and Liz Rust, we could nominate to the Junction Village. And Marcia's, anxious to get that thing started as well. Sorry, all set, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is that it on the nominations that we don't know about?
Yeah, these are just late breaking ones, so. Yes.
Late breaking nominations.
Yep.
And we have a committee appointment. Move to appoint Melissa Saltfield of 7 Concord Green, number 7, to the Community Preservation Committee as the Historical Commission designate for a term to expire May 31st, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
There's some committee reappointments. Move to reappoint Jerry Evans of 1844 Main Street to the Concord Housing Development Corporation for a term to expire May 31st, 2021. Carrie LaFleur, Finance Director, to the Retirement Board for a term to expire May 31st, 2021. Tom Martin of 710 Old Marlborough Road and Alicia Hess Cleary of 77 Wood Street to the Concord Cultural Council for terms to expire May 31st, 2021. Also move to confirm the town manager reappointment of Robert Gross of 401 Main Street to the Historical Commission as an associate member for a term to expire May 31st, 2019.
All those in favor?
Aye. And now, we're ready, we move to adjournment to executive session for the purposes of discussing land acquisition, the Duro property, and litigation, W.R. Grace, and to not reconvene in open session. The executive session is needed to protect strategy discussions affecting litigation on unstated matters.
Do a roll call vote. Linda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry. Aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Thank you, everyone.